Hi, I'm Jess Randall, and you're listening to the Talk Harvey to Me podcast.
All right, so we're good. We are live once again. So, welcome back to the Talk Harvey to Me podcast. I'm Anthony, as always, and today I have a very special guest rejoining. So, part two of our Carnivore episode. We have Jess here today.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Oh, for sure. How's So last time we did this, you were in Japan. Now you're on the west coast of the United States. So, how was that transition?
It was fine. I like traveling. I enjoy traveling, so it wasn't too bad, and it's easier, I think, coming this way instead of going to Japan because you like gain a whole day. So it
Yeah,
wasn't as bad as going out there.
yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you're going back in time.
Yeah, and for some reason I don't know if it's because carnivore. I don't know. I don't want to attribute every good thing in my life to carnivore always, but I don't like get jet lag anymore. Cuz when I flew out to Japan, I didn't really have any sort of problem transitioning to the time. It wasn't that bad, and then when I came here, like it really wasn't that bad either. It took me like a day to like get transitioned to the time. So I don't know what that's about, but let's say it's carnivore. No.
You heard it here. You heard it here first. The cure for jet lag is the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
So the last time we were on, we went through the carnivore diet. We were talking about your experience with it, um, which was very well reviewed, by the way. So a lot of people liked hearing your story, so that's good. I found it fascinating, and it's a diet that I've always been really interested in checking out personally. So I finally got around to doing it, and I did it for 30 days.
Okay. How
Um,
was
I was. I'm trying to think. What's the best way to? I'm not so much in awe because I can kind of see. I kind of like knew some of the benefits or the expected benefits going in, but I was very surprised with a lot of different things that happened while I was on the diet, and how fast they changed. So my diet usually, if you were to break it down prior to this, is about 40% carbohydrate, about 50% protein, and then I got some fat in there. Certain days that's going to sway, obviously, but I have a really balanced diet generally, right? So there's definitely swings where I'll eat, I'll have some junk food, right? I'm not very restrictive in my diet, but most of the time, protein's good. Everything else depends on the day or what I'm kind of working towards. So switching, like first off, as far as like just food selection in general, it was so different. Like it changed my shopping experience completely. So grocery trips, I only needed to go to like one place, which is kind of awesome because it was so much more convenient. Like just go to the meat area, get what I need, and carry on. So for my 30 days, I didn't change much about my life at all. Same bedtimes, same wake up times, same exercise routine. I was running every other day. The only thing that really changed, same meeting times actually too, same meeting schedule. The only thing that really changed was just what I was eating. And what I can say after probably the first 48 hours, I was immediately not bloated at all.
Oh wow, yeah.
Like not that I usually have issues with too much bloating. I mean, it does happen from time to time, but it was just instantaneous as far as like just being gone. I also noticed workout wise for the first 2 weeks, workout wise, I was normal. Everything stayed the same. My strength was the same. My endurance was about the same. Towards the second 2 weeks of that did change a little bit. So the beginning of my workout was awesome. The end of my workout, I could feel, I was dragging a little bit more. Um, but I like to take it. I like to take my workouts a little far, so that was kind of what I expected. I was surprised to see running. My endurance was fine and actually felt a lot smoother than it generally does, even whether I've run after I worked out or before. There was no difference. Whereas prior to trying out the diet, when I would run, if I ran first, the run felt great. The workout was suffered a little bit, or it'd be flipped. This time, both of them were fine, which I was very, 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 very impressed with as far as getting a result from the diet. The other big thing, my sleep quality was dramatically different.
Better, right? Better.
So much better. So like I usually don't have a problem going to sleep because I'm usually tired anyway. So Usually, once it's time to go to bed, I'll lay down. Within 5 to 10 minutes, I'm asleep. But as far as like waking up and how I feel in the morning, as far as being refreshed and feeling recovered, one of the concerns that I had going in was because I'm a nutrition coach, and the way that I'm trained to talk nutrition, if you don't eat carbs, your body doesn't recover and you don't heal up, and you're going to induce muscle soreness. I haven't been sore at all. I'm not sore often anyway, but there are days where I'd rather have a run in a tough workout, or it just catches up with you eventually, or you have a bad night's sleep or something like that. My sleep was phenomenal, which obviously sleep is going to keep bleed into the rest of the day. So a lot of my days were much more productive. There was a lot more efficiency in my days. My mood was better throughout the day. I never really had a feeling of like, oh my God, I'm dragging. Like I need another cup of coffee, or I feel like I need a snack or anything like that. So I was thoroughly impressed.
Yeah. It's crazy, right? It's just kind of a sustained energy, and then your body will provide you with more energy if you need it. And then when it's time to wind down for the night, your body like will wind down when it needs to wind down. It's so weird that your body just does what it needs to do, and without having to supplement with like caffeine or like sleeping stuff at night and things like that. It's just like, oh, okay, we're gonna go work out, I'll give you a little more energy. Oh, we're going to bed, okay, time to go to bed. And that's, at least that's how I feel with on it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And so my day of eating typically consisted of, I would have like a 6 egg scramble with whole eggs. I'd throw a bunch of butter in there, more butter than I usually would, just on the assumption, me going into this, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna need energy from somewhere, so I have a little bit of extra butter in there.
Yeah.
And then I would have about 2 ribeyes, about a couple hours apart, which is about the same feeding schedule that I'm used to. And then for dinner, I would either have a third ribeye or maybe like a chicken, kind of grilled chicken type deal. And snack wise, I did snack a little bit. I get kind of snacky. So I did have like a, those like pepperoni roll up things that you see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and one thing that I did notice that made it super easy to notice, probably after the first week. So I don't have a lot of dairy in my diet ordinarily, right? So I'll have cheese if it's an option, but I'm not like, oh my God, I need a way to work dairy into my diet. It's just not there. Sometimes I wouldn't say that I'm lactose intolerant, but I've had situations, come up over the years where like, I have a milkshake or I had something like that, and my stomach was just rocked. I was able to tell immediately once after about the first week. I was able to tell immediately like if what was bugging me. Because obviously the red meat wasn't bugging me or any of the meat wasn't bugging me. But if I added cheese to something like my scrambled eggs, sometimes I'll put cheese on them. I could tell immediately that there was cheese in it. And depending on the kind of cheese, because one of them I had like some Kraft singles, which is a horrible choice for cheese, but oddly I like it for some reason. And then other times I had some like actual, like, I don't know, maybe professional grade cheese, and those cheeses were fine obviously because they're a little harder and they don't have as much bacteria to them. But I was able to instantly identify like what gave me any kind of issue or what made me feel a little off or sluggish or anything like that, which I found amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great elimination diet that when people always ask me, hey, I've heard this person say this and this person say this, but what do you think? And I always say, just try it for yourself. Try both ways for yourself and see how your body reacts and then decide from there. I feel like a lot of people get so consumed with um following someone and like, oh, this person says this, so I have to believe X, Y, and Z. But then you forget to that you are like the best person to experiment on to know what if it's true or not, you know? So when people ask me like, should I take out dairy? It's like, take out dairy and see, and then add it back in, and you'll know if you should keep it removed or not. Like, just try.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And once you just don't have it, it's you just notice it. It's like, oh, it literally, it's like within the hour of it, like you swallowing it, like you can kind of tell, you're like, oh, okay, I see where this is going.
Yeah, if I go to a restaurant now and they cook their food in seed oils, I will immediately, not immediately, but the next day I'll start to like get breakouts. And I'm like, "Oh, I had seed oils." It's like every time my body like just will tell me right away if I have seed oils.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. So like I'm a huge fan of the elimination diet. I might start retooling my method that I work with when I work with clients to kind of
Mm.
lean towards mostly carnivore.
Oh, cool.
just to kind of get that going a little bit smoother because the change was so fast. And obviously, if you go elimination using a balanced diet approach, it's still there.
Hmm.
But sometimes people have a little bit of like you're not changing too much about their diet. You're just eliminating a couple things
Hmm.
as opposed to just going clean slate and then building up from there. I think it would definitely be a fascinating approach that everyone needs to try, at least for some point or some phase.
Yeah. So, what was the most surprising benefit?
The I figured so like I'm not gonna bullshit anybody. I love me some snacks. Like I'm all for cake, cookies. I don't have a ton of sugar in my diet normally, but I'm not averse to it. Like if I'm dying in a gas station and I see a Snickers bar, like I love Snickers bars. Granted, I eat them in moderation. I'm not like downing one every day, but like occasionally I'll have one. So I figured um, that I would suddenly be like, oh wow, like I'm craving hard. Like I need some kind of car. I need a banana, which is common in my diet. I need an apple. I need all these things that I usually have in, and I supplement. Like I have a lot of applesauce because it's quick. I can do it in between clients. It's a great starter in the morning. Like I didn't crave anything, not once. There wasn't even the thought. Like I even when I went to the grocery store out of habit, sometimes I'd go down the cookie aisle because I do tend to be a sucker for like when they may release like new versions of Oreos, which a fantastic road to go down. I didn't even have like the thought didn't occur to me to grab one, and it wasn't even because I was being disciplined and locked in. It was just like, yeah, it's just a cookie. Like I didn't have that craving at all, which I found that was super surprising to me.
Yeah, because you're just so satiated from the meat and the fat, you don't really think about anything else.
Yeah, yeah, and I was so much calmer too. Like throughout the day, like my resting heart rate usually sits around like low 70s. If we're already like this time of day, for instance, I'll be sitting around. I've already worked out. My body's kind of recovering from a workout from working. I've been up for 13 hours at this point. I like mine. I was instantly rocking like 54 while being awake and walking around.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
which
that's crazy. That's like ultra marathon runner heart rate.
yeah. So even go back a year ago when I was in my full running routine before I hurt my foot. I was running any given day. I was running 5 to 7 miles with like a 16 miler on Sunday. And that was just a training week for me. And my heart rate resting still wasn't even that low back then. And
Wow.
I was super locked in. And that was we're talking about this change took maybe like 7 to 10 days to notice on the carnivore diet.
And did
Um,
you still salt your food? Did you still add salt to everything or?
I had some salt and pepper. Sometimes I threw a little garlic on it. I'm never too strict with spices, to be honest with you. Um, I didn't. I wanted to just see, the on a macro level, like what it would do. I would assume that, and you could probably answer this better than I could. Seasoning wise, does that play a role in like the result that you get from the carnivore diet?
I think it just depends on how you react to them personally. So, for instance, I cut out pepper and the pepper specifically, I don't think it did anything to me physically or mentally, but I just didn't miss it. So then I just never really added it back in. If there's pepper on something though, if I get it out at a restaurant, I don't mind. But garlic was something that I would get bloated if I ate it. My husband and I when we were in Japan and we would go to yakiniku, they would have garlic on some of the meat, and after we would eat, I would notice that I just felt really bloated, and I would ask him, what do you think is going on? Like, I'm just eating meat, why am I bloated? And then the next time we went, I didn't eat the meat with the garlic and I felt fine. So then I started removing garlic from my diet, because of that, and I rarely have it now. Again, if it's in something, I'm not extremely picky and I'll just deal with it, but on a like day-to-day basis, like I try to limit my spices, just my seasonings or whatever, to just salt. But yeah, I think it's just one of those things. Again, you have to experiment with yourself and see how you personally react to it, because there are some that can have like adverse side effects for people. Not I don't think very extreme, but just like bloating and just stuff like that. That's just not ideal.
Yeah, yeah. So sorry. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've always loved garlic. I love the taste of it. Thankfully, one of my takeaways here. I'm thankful that I don't really have any autoimmune issues like going into this. So obviously the impact on my life is going to be different than the impact that it is that like say for someone like you, where it could like completely revitalize your life almost. But some of those minuscule changes just from like that day to day, like I was super surprised with because I've spoken to other people who have been on the carnivore diet and they're like, hey, for the first week, you might have a lot of headaches. As your body kind of goes through, you're going to feel drained. Eventually, ketones will kick in. You'll kind of like get going again. There was just none of that. It was like a little bit of that maybe came in like week 3 or 4.
Mm.
Part of that was my own doing with, just undersleeping or just working on too many things at the same time. But I was very, 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 very impressed with the whole experience. Super funny though. Somewhere in the middle of the month of my 30 days, um, I ended up going out to lunch with a couple friends. They wanted to take me out to repay a favor, but they picked a pizza place. So I had been eating just nothing but basically steak and eggs and some chicken. And we go to this pizza place. And I'm like, oh, they have meatballs. So I'll eat the meatballs. Pizza is one of my favorite foods. So I was like, you know what? I'll just have this one meal. We'll be fine. It's no big deal. I ate this whole personal pan pizza, and literally within like the just one slice, I ate the whole thing. But after the first slice, I felt like Thanos in Endgame, where he takes the final Infinity Stone and he puts it in the gauntlet, and he's like supercharged. Like I could feel the carbohydrates, and it just hit every single part of my body. It was wild.
Yeah. That's interesting. Do you get any adverse effects from it?
No, literally, like there was just like 1 hour where I was like super hyper,
Oh,
and yeah, super hyper, and then it was just gone. And I was like, oh,
did you
okay,
did you crash or?
nah,
Interesting. That's cool.
yeah.
So what are you doing now? Like what's your diet now?
So I got to day 30,
Okay.
and I was like, all right, now let's test this. So I ate a bowl of cereal, right? Milk instantly. Just was not my friend, which I've kind of known for a while, but I just wanted to see, just mostly out of curiosity. And then I went to just to take it from one extreme to the other. I went to McDonald's and I got a double quarter pounder with cheese, and I ate the entire thing, ate the fries, ate the nuggets, and I felt like I got hit with like toxic sludge.
Oh
And
no.
like it was just like I was just like, like I could like just feel that meal. Part of that is obviously food quality, but just when you have the fries, when you have nuggets as well, you have the bun on there, and yeah, I could just feel that immediately. Um, it also didn't taste as good as I remember it tasting. Um,
Hmm.
so so as we know, with like when we build our diet, whether it's carnivore or balanced diet, when you have a ton of whole foods in your diet, your palate is going to become it's going to transform a little bit, and it'll revert to where it's kind of should be. So you can kind of taste things as they should be tasting. We all know that American food has a ton of sugar in it, so we kind of get desensitized to that over time. So you can kind of tell the difference when you add in those new food groups. So like a McDonald's cheeseburger to me tasted a little bit sweeter than normal, which is kind of weird. And then I got I went and bought like this little slice of cake. It's like, all right, what if I just blast myself with sugar? Because I really haven't had sugar at that point in like 30 some odd days. And that just was not the vibe. Like that was the same effect. It like didn't taste as good as I remember it tasting. And it was just like, sugar, it's not my friend.
Yeah, but I mean, that's you I feel like that's what you gotta do though to like figure out where your the sweet spot is for you of like what you can what you do and do not want to have in your diet. And like I don't think everyone has to be super strict carnivore all the time, but you tried it and you loved it, so it's probably gonna be something that's just in the back of your mind of like if you ever need to like reset or anything, like you're like I could just fall back on carnivore and do this for 30 days again and then go back to my regular eating. And I feel like that's my husband does that. Like he's not strict carnivore, but if he ever just needs to, if he's feeling like too bloated and stuff from carbs or anything, and he'll just go back to carnivore for a little bit until he like feels good again, and then he'll start adding things back in.
Yeah. Yeah. So going forward, I'll probably stay mostly carnivore. Like today, I've had 2 ribeyes already today, had some eggs. I'm right back to that. I'll probably be one of those people that pick and pops, with the exception of probably the time span between November and December. because I'll probably go through a bulking phase,
Mm.
and it's just easier if you just overload with carbs obnoxiously, which I
Yeah,
which I tend.
hard to yeah, it's hard to overeat carnivore. Like you can only eat so much meat before you like really cannot eat any meat anymore.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I just like I can't believe I wasn't hungry. Like there wasn't a day that I was like, oh my god, I'm starving, or like I would eat and I'm like not satisfied. Also found a new love for my air fryer. Like just throwing a steak in an air fryer is game changing.
From frozen too. Did you ever just do it from frozen?
Never from frozen because I would just go to the store, buy them, and then cook them all,
Oh,
and then I'd have them there. Um, but I need to try one frozen, so I'll probably work that in this week. But so much simpler. Throw in some seasoning. It takes like 7 minutes, like
mm.
if that. And yeah, it was. I was thoroughly impressed, honestly. Um, the one thing I did try that I just couldn't get behind. Don't get me wrong, I love butter.
Oh,
Like I could swim in butter. You could put too much butter in something. I'm there. When I was a kid, I used to eat butter on saltine crackers. I'd eat the whole tub. I saw your post the other day or a couple weeks ago where you're running and like a mid run or maybe post run, you just had like a stick of butter and you were just going to town on it like it was a candy bar. One, I was impressed. Two, I don't know if I could pull that off.
you can't do that? Yeah, no, I
No.
used to I couldn't do it in the beginning either. I thought it was so gross. And then one day I just was looking in my refrigerator and the butter just looked so good and I was like, I'm going to try it. And then after that I was hooked. I could just eat butter right off the stick. I only do like a couple bites though. I've never been able to eat or I don't want to eat the whole stick cuz it is a lot, but
Yeah.
if I ever just want am a little hungry but not hungry enough to have meat, I'll just go get a couple bites of butter and then I'm satiated again because it's just like straight fat. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just really convenient.
Yeah. Oh, it looks totally convenient. What kind of butter what kind of butter was it? Maybe I got the wrong butter.
Kerrygold is what I usually get, and I get unsalted, and we'll add my
Mm,
own red and salt to it. But the Raw Farms butter is also really good. It tastes like Parmesan cheese.
really?
Yeah, it legitimately tastes like Parmesan cheese. It's the weirdest thing, but delicious.
Oh yeah, I'll try it out. I'm a fan of butter, so I know Kerrygold makes a good. What's their butter that I've had? Their garlic butter seems pretty good. Seems pretty decent quality. I didn't have any of that, but I don't think I could eat that one straight. But I'll definitely have to try that in their
Yeah,
standard unsalted.
yeah. Sometimes I'll just sprinkle some salt on it and then just eat it, or just eat it unsalted raw.
Yeah. So one thing that I've kind of been paying attention to and just kind of checking out. Obviously, you're always active on social, spreading the gospel of the carnivore diet. I'm officially a believer, right? I was a believer before. Now I'd say I'm about that life. Like it was a good time. Um, so you get so much flack on social media from people in the comment section for your dietary choice.
I know, I do. It's very interesting, and I love it though. I think it's very entertaining and it helps my content. So because people always be like, just block them, just delete it. And I'm like, why would I do that? Like, they're helping me. Like, my haters are probably helping me more than the people that are like follow me because they genuinely like it.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm joking. But yeah, no, I love the haters and nothing they say ever really makes sense. So it's not, it's just fun to like play with them and like poke them. You know that meme with like the stick and it's like do something. Like
Yeah.
I feel like how I feel with when people comment on my stuff. I just like to poke them and just see what happens.
Yeah. How familiar are you with David Goggins?
Oh, I love David Goggins. I read his book. I don't know if I read the newest one, but I read the other one a couple of times.
Yeah, Can't Hurt Me is the first one. That one's great. Never Finished is the follow up. One of my favorite books. But in it, he actually goes through. So if you follow him on Instagram, he doesn't really post much. He'll have like a message of the day, or he'll respond to like an email that he gets, or like a comment. He's unintentionally funny because he's so serious, but like his stuff is great. But he was talking when he was promoting the book. He was talking about it, and he talks about this in the book too. He actually prints out all his comments that are negative, and he goes into his computer, kind of like we are right now, and he records like an MP4 audio file of just reading all the hate comments. And then when he works out or he goes running and he needs motivation, he just listens to it. Or when he goes to bed, like he'll be in bed listening to his headphones to all his hate comments.
Holy cow. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I don't use the hate as motivation. I genuinely just find it really entertaining. But I don't know, I don't use the hate as motivation cuz I've never been a kind of person of like if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it just to prove you wrong. Like I've never been motivated by that. I've always been very I just very if I want to do it, I will. If I don't, I won't. And what you say isn't going to change anything about what I do. So when I see people like telling me you're a murderer or a rapist or comparing me to Hitler or telling me that cows are killing the planet, it's me and my husband like we I will like sometimes scroll through and then just read in the comments and we just like lay in bed just like cracking up because yeah, it's just genuinely like the best entertainment because they get so mad.
Oh, people get so mad on social media these days.
Yeah, and it's just so they think they're so right and of course I think I'm right too, but I'm not going onto vegan platforms and commenting on vegans things. Like I'm letting them go do their thing and scam people and then I'm over here just like sharing my ideas and hopefully I can convince people to not listen to vegans. And which I think is how you're supposed to um, spread ideas in a healthy society is just like you have an idea and someone else has a better idea and then people can decide what idea they want to follow and it's up to them. So I don't know, I appreciate the haters and I think it's really entertaining, but I also I don't want them to stop because
Yeah.
because
Oh, never.
yeah, I don't want it to stop.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's honestly in any kind of industry, that's how you know you're kind of onto
Mhm.
something. Plus, it saves you on some of the days where you might not have an idea or something like that. You need something to talk about, and
Yeah.
then you can drop my personal favorite all time insult that I've heard you drop, which is leaf nibbler.
Yeah, I got that from Raw Meat Experiment. I didn't make that up.
Oh, you should have take the credit. Yeah, I saw that. I was dying. It was hilarious. The funny thing with people online, especially because obviously the carnivore community and the vegan community, they're so polarized. It's like some people just don't realize like what's at play. Like each individual person is playing their own game, right? And it's not necessarily a game that you can win, right? So Simon Sinek has a book called Talking About Infinite Games. So business would be an example of an infinite game, whereas like a football game, right, would be a finite game, right? So there's a clear winner, there's a clear loser. In business, it's just whoever gives up first or whoever mismanages. I've been thinking about this over the past week, and just one of the ideas that rattles around in my brain: fitness and like health and lifestyle is also one of those infinite games because there's never a point where you've completed the game, right? So everyone's just playing, this game, and like in your game, carnivore works for you, and you're 100% right because based on all your experience in the game that you've been playing and how you've had to adapt to it, it's worked. And then when you look at the vegan side, you have uh, obviously you still have believers in that community, right? Which nothing wrong with that. And for them, they've had the same experience where, hey, I made this change and I'm all in, and everything is kind of working well. And then you have the people in the middle who maybe don't have as much of a defined game for themselves, and like, oh, well, that's definitely wrong. Like that's going to kill you. Like assuming that it's a game that ends, and like they're trying to play someone else's game instead of just playing their own, which I think is a very fascinating thought process. But people don't realize that, and I think that's where you get a lot of like the hate comments, where it's like, "Oh, you're gonna die," or just like the one you had the other day. It's like, "Show me any carnivore that's long time that like lived into, old age," and you had like perfect examples just already lined up. So they just spend too much time like trying to win at other things that necessarily might not align with like what they do, what they need, what works for them, and things like that. And it's very unfortunate, but it's also very fascinating to think about it because that obviously plays out, in tons of different ways.
Yeah. I think when people respond negatively on my content, it's in life generally when people have a response like that, it's usually because something resonated with them and made them feel uncomfortable, so they're kind of lashing out to try to protect their beliefs. So that's my opinion on it. Of when people like yell at me and try to tell me that I'm wrong and stuff, they it's probably because what I'm saying resonates and they feel uncomfortable, so they have to like shut it down immediately to make themselves feel better. And the one guy recently on TikTok told me he just flat out told me like that I didn't experience the things that I experienced, and I'm like, okay. He's like, whatever helps you sleep at night, and I'm like, you too, buddy. Like, just completely. He's like, nope, that didn't happen. You didn't heal anything. Nope, nope. La 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 la. I'm like, okay, whatever you want to believe, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like everyone has, that's such a funny thing to say. Like everyone has something that helps them sleep at night. Like for me, it's the fact that I'm probably going to win a 10 leg NFL parlay this year. Like that helps me sleep at night. Like that day is coming. It might not be this weekend. It might be a couple weeks. It might, be 2 years down the road. But we all got that thing that we cling to. Um, Jordan Peterson actually talked in one of his book, 12 Rules for Life. He talks about one of these examples as far as like with beliefs and like if you have something that you believe in and it's disproved or it's proven to disproved, right? It becomes hard to internalize that. Depending, obviously, as I say, you believed it all your life. It becomes hard, and then it becomes one of those things where it's like, well, wait, how gullible am I? Like, what else is not true? And like, it's hard for a lot of people to like to look inward and just be like, oh, I was a fool, I was wrong. And some of us, we see that information and like, okay, I was proven wrong. What's the correct information? Well, this seems legit. For some people, it's just hard to have that. It's like, oh my god, I was wrong. I believed something, or I was duped. Like, what else am I being duped about? Is this real? And like that road can cause like kind of a downward spiral. So a lot of people are unwilling to do that, and they'll just die on that hill. I mean, you see that definitely in nutrition. You see it in gym culture. You see it like this exercise works, that exercise works, this style is best, this style is best. You see it. It's riddled in politics now. Whereas there's some people on either side of the aisle which like I'm not backing down no matter what, and it's like, hey, XYZ, and they're like, it can't be real because if it's real, then what else is not real?
Yeah. There's no nuance anymore, which is really sad. And I think the internet is exacerbated that a little bit of people will just stick to something and like you said like die on whatever hill that they want to die on because the internet is so polarizing that you can't really have nuanced thought anymore because people will just like eat you alive. So you have to be polarizing to get anywhere on the internet, which so it's just made that just such a bigger issue than than it has been in the past, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah. The internet, for all its amazing things, has some just awful things to it.
Yeah.
Um, you see pretty much everything gets attacked. Doesn't matter what it is. Like there are like any industry, any sport, any page, any genre of content, anything that is said online is always challenged.
Yep.
Even it could be clear as day, like if you breathe oxygen, you're great, and they're like, no.
Yeah.
Um, and it's so crazy to see.
Hmm. And people, I feel like it just highlights just some of the worst qualities in people, and some people, I feel like some people can deal really well with the internet and some people can't. And it just highlights really bad human nature things about human nature of just being argumentative, and probably it's probably more psychological than that of they are insecure, so then they are like that on the internet to try to make themselves feel better, and they like put you down and things like that. So I don't know, I think, but whenever people are acting like that, it's important to remember that it has nothing to do with you and it has everything to do with them and whatever they're dealing with in their life, which that also helps me a lot when I get hate comments, because I don't take it personally.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And like 'cause sometimes like I'll see things online all the time. Like I'm an avid Twitter user in the sense where like I'll take most of my information from independent journalists that are on Twitter, whether it be both sides of the aisle. I don't really mind if they're Democratic, liberal, if they're Republican, anything like that. Like I like to consume not information from everywhere, and then I kind of like make sense. And I think there's a lot of half truths in everything, and some things are kind of true, some things you know might have a little bit of bullshit to them or a little flair or spin. Um, but there's so much like hostility, like which is undue because obviously, like so for me, I have no issue talking to people with different beliefs that I have. And a lot of times I'm more curious as to why like you think the way that you think, and maybe like you're seeing something in your game like we were talking about that I'm not seeing, or maybe I don't have exposure to it and there's a reason why you believe what you believe or any of that stuff. And I think a lot of that gets lost in how we interact with society, because I'm willing to bet, and you've lived in cities, right? And you go out, you're not a recluse. I'm willing to bet no one's ever called you Hitler to your face, or a murderer, or a rapist, or an animal killer, or anything like that.
No, the internet. Holy cow.
On the line.
Yeah.
um, yeah, so it's wild, and like it, it's a good thing, but it also desensitizes us, and obviously that bleeds into a lot of other aspects in society. When you look at like the birth rate issue that the world has, the human loneliness issue that the world has, you look at the hotly contested issues in politics, you look at the hotly contested issues, and at this point, pretty much anything, you have this safety barrier where the threat of violence is removed. So, like, I could, like, so even like right now, I'd be like, oh my God, switch the script. Carnivore is terrible. Like, you're a murderer. But realistically, there's nothing you could do. Whereas if I were to say it in person, like, if you wanted to, you could slap me. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So people don't have that, so they can kind of get away with that a little bit more, which usually you see in the contested situation. But even if you look in the dating world, like, it's not like the old days where you hear the stories of, I saw your grandmother and I just stormed into her, asked her to the dance, and the rest is history. Now it's like, oh, I slid in her DM or I matched with her on Tinder, and then we had like a 45-minute awkward interview, and then like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
just the dynamics of society have changed so much.
Oh yeah. Completely. And some of it I feel like is beneficial and some of it's not, but everything in life is like that, and you just gotta do what you think is best, personally best for you, and then just kind of let other people make the mistakes they're gonna make, and you can agree with them or not agree with them. I don't know. It's like I go back and forth of being passive and just letting people do what they want to do and it doesn't affect me, and then like also thinking, well, if I just turn a blind eye and just let people like specifically veganism and stuff, like if we just turn a blind eye and just let them continue to spread these lies and scam more people into veganism, then one day we might be living in a meatless society, and I'll be thinking to myself, damn, I really wish I would have like done more instead of just let them do what they wanted to do, and like wash my hands of it and lived my life, you know? So I go back and forth of like being passive and being actively involved in combating things that I don't believe in.
Yeah, I tell that line a lot too. As a trainer, so when you're early in a trainer, everyone's your fucking client. Like your mom eats something, hey, that's not bad. That's not bad. That's not good for you. You should you need to work out. Your friends, everyone that makes a decision. Eventually, you're like, if you're over there eating cement and you're not my client, I got nothing for you. Like you can do whatever the hell you want. McDonald's is great for you. Whatever it is you're eating, great idea. I think you should keep doing it. Eat more of it, double it up. Um, Certain issues like the meatless society thing, which would kind of be a pretty decent segue here, pop up, and I'm like, no way. Like this cannot be a thing that can happen. So, um, I've obviously we have. I'm like dying right now. Hold on, I'll edit this out. So there's like a couple coincidences that like pop up. So last time that we were on, we talked about how cows are being murdered and accused of farting, pooping, and then it's causing this climate crisis. the World Economic Forum, you have your group of billionaire goons that are kind of getting together and they're just talking about creepy stuff all the time. I'm sure the organization does some productive things for our world economy, but they also always seem to get on these topics of like very strange like things going on, like things that they go down. So one of these is talking about a meatless society, and talking about like getting to a point where they might be able to engineer humans to not respond well to red meat, right, to help with the climate. And then suddenly we have new stories and articles about the Lone Star tick, which its bite can cause you a red meat allergy. Its climate is usually in the south because it needs a warmer climate, and because of global warming, it's been creeping its way up north into places like Minnesota, New England, parts of New York, and stuff like that. And like, I'm not usually a conspiracy theorist, but I kind of do like the rabbit hole approach a little bit. And you see this now popping up, and I was looking into it, and like it's only occurred since 2010. That's probably I'm not going to go hard fact that it was first discovered in 2010, but all the research seems to start around 2010 around these tick bites. And basically, it makes people just literally allergic to it. They can't process the sugar that's going to come from red meat, and then they can become violently sick. Some people can die, but most people just, diarrhea, throw up, food poisoning is kind of what it's masked as. And now suddenly it's on everyone's radar, and it's a thing, and it's an issue, and it's like this is coming out of nowhere, and it needs a warmer climate. But last I checked, I'm from New England. It's still cold as shit up there, like 4 or 5 months of the year, and now it's popping up, and you have the creation of the other thing, right? So Bill Gates is big into epidemiology now, right? So he's like, oh, I'm going to create a malaria vaccine because malaria kills 2,000 kids every year in Africa. Seems great. What does he eventually release? He's like, I've created the ability to bioengineer mosquitoes. And then suddenly there's a malaria outbreak caused by mosquitoes in Florida. It was very small, very contained, but like all these coincidences that kind of go through, and it kind of makes you wonder, like, if we do really want a meatless society, is the Lone Star tick the way to go about it?
Probably in their mind. I mean, did you see the video of Matthew Lau I have on my profile of him talking about how they can use the Lone Star tick to genetically, uh, I, did he say modify? I don't remember exactly how he worded it, but basically to make humans allergic to meat because some humans won't give up meat, so then they'll have to use that to like force them to give up meat in this meatless society. And then there's another video of him that I have on my page talking about uh, developing. He wants to develop a meat patch that people can wear that will basically make them allergic to meat. So if you are just one of those stubborn Americans that can't give up red meat, then you'll have to wear your meat patch, so that you won't be inclined to eat red meat anymore.
Wow. So is that like a Nicorette patch?
Yeah, a meat patch, and he's so giddy about it. In the It's a TED talk. It's at TEDx, and his name's Matthew Lau, and he's a bio in I forget what his title is exactly. I don't know if he's a bioengineer or if he's something else, but his whole goal is like meatless society, and it's really creepy when he talks because he's giddy like a school child talking about things that have been proven wrong multiple times, and they're giving him a massive platform.
Yeah. Honestly, all those guys, when they get into this topic, they all start to sound like super creepy.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I totally
like
understand.
James Bond villain.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally understand. And the funny thing is, like in James Bond, all the villains are billionaires, usually. It like I get that idea that maybe you go through life, you work, you're into your profession or investments, or you do things and you succeed and you now have an enormous amount of wealth, and it's like, oh, well, what else am I going to do? And then you just find yourself doing random projects or things like that. um, but they're just like super creepy as far as like, oh, we want to control this and control that, and like they're talking about certain cities, even in the U.S., like becoming cities. I forget what they're called. I don't think it's the 15-minute city, but cities where like you can't have your own private vehicle. Everything has to be electric. Red meat is banned. And then, they mention, then you have all those stuff going on. And there's obviously little correlations in like first steps. And then you have things like universal income and social credit scores. And then you have vaccine passports and all these things that keep popping up. And it's like, I'm all for if you guys like, fix the world economy or you have some crazy plan to kind of, do this, do that. You make a universal income system and maybe we switch to, we're all kind of like blue collar workers. And I think one day we'll probably end up in that society. And that's probably way down the road. But they get into like these weird control aspects of everything. And it's just like hard to not be like, whoa, this is crazy. And then you correlate everything that's happening simultaneously. Like Bill Gates and his cronies can bioengineer insects to have carry a vaccine into a community, but that means that they can do the opposite as well. And then you see all like these random bugs that aren't where they belong, and you have them traveling different places. So like the Lone Star tick shouldn't be found in Minnesota that often because it's very cold in Minnesota. Same thing in like parts of New England, and it's just a crazy kind of thing to see for such something that's honestly so trivial.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I think it is all about control, and it's also important to remember that it's human nature to take things to the extreme. Human beings, I mean, as a on a group level, like in any sort of like significant group, you you will always see human beings taking things to the extreme. Like the internet, there it's like one side the other. Like things just always get taken to an extreme. Politics gets taken to the extreme. So with this stuff, like it's like, well, why can't you guys just stop at helping? Like you said, just helping A, B, and C. Why do you have to do all these other things? It's like because human nature isn't you can't just stop, like you just want more and more and more and more, which is why, like, in my opinion, like the best thing for humanity is just like freedom and just like let people know, like not having these like centralized like powers like controlling things, and just like letting people make their choices, and some will succeed, some won't, because once you start giving people control, they're just going to want more and more and more and more control because it will not stop.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. Like the funny thing about like freedom, in like certain instances, right? You kind of figure it out, right? Like you look at like the cavemen, wandering around, and Greg eats the red berry, Greg dies. Hey everyone, don't eat the red berry.
Yeah.
Society just auto-regulated itself. You know what I mean? And like it's like, oh, like look at this cat. It's got really long fangs, and oh, the saber tooth tiger ate Fred. Like, don't go near that thing. It's not going to pet you. It doesn't want to play. Like, that's something that
Yeah.
that's a threat. And it auto regulates, and we've lost that for sure. Because there's a lot of instances of what I just described. Like, obviously, people will figure out the best course of action for themselves.
Hmm.
And that's the thing that becomes scary about it. Like, am I necessarily bought in that there's going to be this like Illuminati type like New World Order? Not particularly. There's a little smoke there. I find it intriguing enough to listen to people that are talking about it, to like kind of like make my own judgments on it. But when you see things like, oh, we're going to ban red meat in like major cities, it's like, come on, like that's just a stretch. Because obviously I'm in health and fitness, and I'm well versed in nutrition, and now I've done the carnivore diet. I've seen the benefit. It's like it's just such, it's almost negligence, almost in a way. And then now we pump the story, hey, Lone Star tick is a thing. Like people are going to get red meat allergies, and you might not even know because only 35% of doctors knew about this allergy even existed. And it's like, hey, so you might have it already, and it's like, oh, don't, like, so you could be that person. Um, Obviously, this is more like the NPC mindset, but you could be that person like, oh, I might have it, but I just wouldn't know unless I don't eat red meat. Red meat's bad anyway because it's going to clog my arteries and give me a heart attack. I'm not even going to bother. Which, yeah, it's just not never like the good vibe at all.
Yeah, and I think critical thought is lacking, severely lacking in today's society, which would help self-regulate our society. And people are unable to make choices for themselves now. And I think the internet has a lot to do with that too, to where we've exalted experts and stuff to which I mean, if they are an expert in their field and stuff, like, yeah, you want to listen to what they're saying. I think that humans have also just kind of got to a point to where now you can't make any decision unless some expert tells you to, and you can't do it like uh, think for yourself and think critically, and like what you were saying of listen to both sides and weigh the pros and cons and see point figure out what's a half truth and where everything kind of connects to where you find like what the truth is. And people just are, for the most part, are unable to do that nowadays, and it's kind of sad. Like even on my social media, people will ask me questions, and I just genuinely feel so bad because these it's like they're paralyzed and they can't make their own decisions of like how do you start the carnivore diet and things like that. And in my head I'm like, you buy meat and then eat it. Like it's the simplest thing in the world, and people
Yeah.
get so like consumed with like being needed to need they need to be told how to do everything, even as simple as just go buy a ribeye and eat it, and they can't make that decision on their own, you know.
Yeah.
um so it's really sad, and I, I think it has a lot to do with like just a lack of critical thinking skills in society nowadays.
Yeah, big time. Um, yeah, and we were talking about this too. How we were talking about like the haters, um, how it does help with your algorithms and stuff like that, because that's what's the most activity on a post is going to be the haters, and that's just going to circle. It basically circles it around. So if I'm someone who maybe I'm just in it for a money grab or need something like that, I could just go look up 10 controversial topics right now, put up a bunch of posts about it, and right, and then it's going to get people talking, and the more controversial it is, the more hate comments I'm going to get, and it's just going to push and push and push. And I think we suffer a little bit from that, which then makes you have the genuine creators that get overshadowed, or genuine people like in the industry who might be like an expert in one aspect, or they might have a pretty sound program or a sound approach or something like that, or that's good in info. They get overshadowed by, oh my god, like this X diet is going to kill you, or like this person died. And yeah, it's a crazy, crazy kind of world for that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think I'm still under the I have the opinion that people need to take more personal responsibility with what they're doing online. Like if someone is just being controversial and posting polarizing things to get views and stuff like that, I mean, good for them. Like if they're making money, like capitalism. But I think instead of like demonizing, not I'm not saying like this is what you were doing or anything, but just in general, I feel like people will demonize that creator, and blame them for things. And I think that we need to place more personal responsibility on the people contributing to their content, and tell people like, hey, just stop. Like you have the power to just keep scrolling and just ignore it and move on, or you have the power to like not listen to what that person's saying and not comment and not take like. So I'm still have the opinion that like instead of blaming things on creators or things that people are doing, like take personal responsibility and say like, oh, I can ignore it if I want to, and or I don't have to agree with everything this person says, and I can move on with my life, and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Liver King is a great example. Ultimately, so obviously you know who the Liver King is, right?
Yeah, I actually got accused of working for him the other day, and Paul Saladino, and I was like, because I eat meat, I work for the Liver King, and he's like, you know what I'm saying, and I'm like, I really don't know what you're saying, because millions of people eat meat.
Yeah. That's hilarious. So like a day of eating in your life, there's some steak, there's some eggs, there's some ground beef and stuff like that. A day in his life, like he's eating like bull dick, like bull testicles. Like he put,
Yeah,
I saw something the other day. He had like a bowl of testicles with milk in it, and I was like, dude, like what?
yeah,
But you have like
and
a, huh?
he still drinks carbs and stuff too, and like puts maple syrup on everything. Like he's not carnivore at all.
Yeah, and the dude is fucking jacked. And like the funny thing is, like the people were so outraged. Like once he was outed as someone who was like loaded to the gills on steroids, like people were outraged. It's like, you're surprised by this revelation?
Yeah,
Like it's kind of like the guy. Like I personally always viewed him as satire.
I think he's a meme. I thought he
Yeah,
was just a meme, and I think there's things that he uh preaches, I guess you could say, that are good for men to hear, of just being more manly and working out and eating meat and things like that, like baseline things. And then I think everything else he does is just a meme. But in general, like, yeah, sure, there's some good things that he's like telling people to do, but you don't have to do everything like him. You could just like, you could pick out, I guess you could like cherry pick the things you like about him, and then like the things you don't like, you can just say like, "Oh, hey, I don't like this about him, but I like this about him." And I feel like people have lost that ability.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Like some of his posts were just like epically funny. Like to me, I found him like hilarious. Like he would be dead serious, but he's wearing like this crazy weighted vest. He's carrying all these kettlebells and he's dragging a sled like through the woods, like this iron sled. And he's like, oh, our ancestors like did this back in the day. It's like, dude, cavemen did not have. They weren't carrying around these big ass boulders. Like they just did stuff. They were active.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you see like all the outrage from him, and it's like, well, you didn't. I mean, that was obvious. Like it's not that everything was incorrect that he said. He just happens to be slightly close to a con artist a little bit, but
Yeah.
um,
And he knows how to manipulate people, like you were saying, into getting a reaction, which is going to boost his post, which has made him millions and millions of dollars. So if people just stopped reacting to him, he wouldn't be as famous as he is right now.
yeah. Have you ever eaten like the organs, anything like that? Tried that with meat?
Yeah, yeah. I used to eat raw liver. There was a time where I was eating raw liver almost every day, and or cooking it. I was just eating liver almost every day. And then one day my body was just like, "Nope, this tastes gross now." And I stopped eating liver. So I'm assuming I might have had like some deficiency in something, and then once my once my body got enough of it said no thanks to the liver. So I'll eat it every now and then, but it's not a constant in my diet. And then beef heart is so amazing. It is so delicious. And I think heart and liver are probably the only ones that I've had that are like in meat form. And then I've had other things in like the Force of Nature meats. They have the organ blend, so then there's like organs blended up in their ground beef and stuff like that. And then when I was in Colorado recently at a meetup, I had raw bull testicle, and then we made carnivore Rocky Mountain oysters out of them, and that wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
Yeah, that's good. That's one of those bucket list items.
Yeah, no, I was really excited to try it. The person that we were staying with mentioned that he might have some still in his freezer, and I begged him if we to have them for dinner. I really wanted to try them, and brain is the next thing that I really want to try. I'm will try brain one day.
As like cow brain,
Yeah, yeah.
that'd be interesting. Is there any major brain cuisines that exist currently?
Um, not in America, not any American ones. If there is, I don't know if it's a specific dish like you're talking about like steak tartare or something.
Yeah.
Brains. I don't know if there's a brain one, but I think I've just seen people eat it raw, and then people grind it up in their meat and just add it to like ground beef or something.
Hmm. Interesting. I can't say that I'll ever go as far as to start eating organs. Like I've had liver before. Liver's pretty good actually. I actually don't mind it. But I think I might draw the line there. I don't have anything. I don't see anything wrong with it or anything like that. Like to each their own. But I don't. I'm not sure I could. I could do that.
Heart is amazing though. If you ever do go to a restaurant and beef heart is on the menu, or tongue, beef tongue is actually so incredibly delicious. I would eat that when we go to yakiniku in Japan. Beef tongue was my favorite thing on the menu, and they would slice it up really thin, and then you put it on the grill and it gets nice and crispy. And here in America though, when you get beef tongue, they give you buy the whole entire tongue, and you have to boil it and then peel the taste bud part off of it, and then it's like becomes a shredded meat almost, and then you can make like shredded beef tacos or shredded tongue
Mm.
tacos. So the sliced beef tongue that they had in Japan, that was my absolute favorite, but shredded beef tongue is really delicious too, and heart is really amazing.
So, like, how is the heart prepared? Like, is it like?
Just like grilled, just you just slice it, and then I think in Colorado when we had it, I think he might have sous vide it and then put it on the grill.
I
Yeah,
gotcha. That's
but yeah,
about how
the
I
other
imagine it.
And then like when we would have it at yakiniku, it was just sliced and then you just put it on the grill.
Gotcha. I can kind of see that. I mean, maybe one day. Maybe one day I'll expand my horizons.
Yeah. It's good. I mean, my mom liked it, and she gets grossed out by stuff like that, and she even tried the testicles too, and didn't spit it out. So, but the beef heart, she actually went back for seconds on that one.
Mom approved. We like that. I would like to thank you for giving me the push to get me to do the carnivore for 30 days. We'll work on getting those organs in there. But you definitely, I can confidently say, you definitely have a believer in me now. Whereas
Yeah.
before it was curiosity, now it's the curiosity, interest, and then taking my like nutrition brain into it from what I already knew, and kind of like that preconditioning, kind of opening my eyes and saying like, okay, like there's a little bit more to this. So I definitely appreciate that, for sure. I had a great time. I would strongly recommend everyone at some point in their life to go a month at least going carnivore. The feeling is that drastic. And then obviously, like we were talking about earlier, to recap, right? Go do it for 30 days and then add in those other things that you like. And it's going to give you probably the best barometer I've ever seen as far as like what affects your body in different ways and how all that's going. So thanks again for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I agree. Just I feel like if people just cut out seed oils and ultra processed foods and eat real whole food, it doesn't have to always be meat, but just real whole food. Like so, everyone would be in such a better place, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. Like, and again, my biggest takeaway, obviously, like my inflammation went down. I wasn't bloated. Everything felt smoother. My mental clarity was just phenomenal. Like I was able to, like I was actually getting compliments on like how focused and like my general mood, which almost never happens because I'm relatively neutral. I really don't show any emotion. I'm very like robotic kind of. But yeah, there's those things shining through. You love to see it. I think we can all benefit a little bit from that.
Yay! I'm glad.
Yeah, it's a great time. So this has been enjoyable. We'll probably have to do round three at some point. I don't know if round three is going to include uh, it's going to include organs, but if I ever cross that
Yeah,
road, you'll be the
we'll
first
have to.
person that I let know.
Yeah, we'll have to. I'll send you like a heart or something, and we'll eat heart together.
Yeah, yeah, we could do that on the next episode. All right, Jess.